I've chosen an opening prayer that I think is how I would like us to enter our time together. I would like us to enter in this spirit. I'm going to read the prayer. I would like you not to look at me when I read a prayer. I'd like you to look into yourselves. It's not about me. A prayer is about you. A prayer is something you enter. Close your eyes. Go into yourself. Take a breath. Leave me out of it. I'm not the object of your prayer. You are. You are. However you image your interior chapel, your inner sanctuary, the holy place that you go, don't look at me when we enter prayer. My Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I know myself. Therefore, I will trust you. Though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death, I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Then the priestess said, "Speak to us of prayer." And he answered, saying, "You pray in your distress and in your need. Would that you might pray also in the fullness of your joy and in your days of abundance. It is enough that you enter the temple invisible. I cannot teach you how to pray in words. God listens not to your words, save when he himself utters them through you. And I cannot teach you the prayer of the seas and the forests and the mountains. But you who are born of the mountains and the forests and the seas can find their prayer in your heart. And if you but listen in the stillness of the night, you shall hear them saying in silence, Our God, who art winged self, it is thy will in us that willeth. It is your desire in us that we desire. It is your urge in us that would turn our nights, which are yours, into days which are yours also. We cannot ask you for anything, for you know our needs before they're born. You are our need, and in giving us more of yourself, you give us everything. And that opens our field of grace. Welcome to our workshop. And so, in an opening to a retreat workshop like this, the opening evening is something I like to keep in a larger context. I like to lay the foundation, lay the groundwork. This isn't the evening. This isn't the time to really start the deep interior work. You've traveled, you're tired, it's nighttime, and nighttime's not the time to do all the heavy lifting, but rather to tell you about your heavy lifting. So what we're going to do is enter into the exploration of the spirit, the soul. But part of what I deeply feel is my challenge, my calling, and now how I imaging my work, my interaction, is that there's a difference between discussing the divine and engaging in an experience of that. Part of what I really believe to be true is that we are living in such an exquisitely unique time in which we have released a comfort zone with religions. It doesn't mean we don't still feel some kind of familiarity with our religion. I know I do. But it doesn't fit anymore. Like an old style that we once thought suited us, but we know we really won't ever wear it again. But we keep it in our closet. But we know it doesn't fit. But what does fit? What is it that does fit? Where is it that we need to go? Now see, this is the undefined territory that has yet to be articulated, yet to be identified. We call it that we are seeking, but we haven't even figured out what we're seeking. And part of the nature of the search is to know, actually, to have a little bit of a sense of, you know, what we're looking for, what we're looking at, what we are seeking. Part of what finally teaching a spiritual directions course has awakened in me is the realization, a lot of realizations, that I never articulated before. Among them, that we are seeking, but we've never actually put it to language. And there's a lot of ands here. Another is that what we have become that we have not articulated either. Now this is going to sound kind of funny, so I have to say this again. We also have to look at what we've become uncomfortable with and why. One of the things that we've become uncomfortable with is truth. We don't like to hear it. We don't like to speak it. We don't like truth very much. And curiously, the spiritual path is about truth. So herein lies a collision. Herein lies a very interesting collision. And as a result of that, we've kept the spiritual path a very mental one. Because that allows us to kind of keep it at the idea level, but not the experiential one. Are you following this? You know, we have an anomaly that's characteristic of us, but it never existed before. It's an anomaly. We have an inner self. We speak about our inner self. We'll say, you know, well, my inner self tells me. And I'll say, what does your inner self tell you? Tell me what your inner self tells you. And your inner self, if you pay attention to it, always speaks more honestly than you do. So the inner self is actually something we've invented as we grew uncomfortable with truth. We manufactured a part of us that could speak the truth, but not be humiliated. It's a manufactured part of ourselves that we invented that could represent truth because we can't speak it directly. So instead of saying, actually, this is what I'm thinking, we say, I got it on the inner, and who can argue with that? Oh, well, in that case. Well, in that case. But if you bypass that and said, you didn't get it on the inner, this is just what you want. Don't tell me that, because that's too raw and that's too honest. So it's a very, very interesting time in that the spiritual path, the real path, is about truth. And in fact, in this kind of mind, body, spirit thing, we've actually gone the other way. We've so clung to mental ideas and mental debate that the part of the truth aspect is not something we actually really look at, but it's something that needs to be looked at. Which is, where does that play a role? So that when somebody goes to what I would call their inner well and asks a question about what am I feeling? What is it I'm searching for? When all the great master teachers say, you really do know, that is the truth. You know far more than you realize. You know because it's in your spiritual nature, your spiritual intelligence, which is what we're going to talk about, to provide you with more guidance 24/7, to provide it to you all the time. So you actually are always receiving a level of inner guidance that is inherent to your biological spiritual makeup, your spiritual DNA. It's not a special treat to get guidance. It doesn't require a diet. It just really is in your nature. It's in our design. Another part that I think we need to go back to, not go back, that's not even the right word, we need to understand is our relationship to nature and the role that plays in our spiritual makeup. And by that, I don't mean that we need to go out into nature, this kind of thing. I mean that we are ourselves a product of nature. I mean that we are ourselves subject to the laws of nature, that we are not an exemption from the behavior of nature. We are not here to study and dominate nature. We are subject to the laws of nature. We are, in other words, a species, no different from any other animal. None. Zero. Which means that when earthquakes strike and storms strike, we are as likely to be taken down by those storms as any other animal that's outside. And they do not say, oh, look at those poor innocent deer, say the other deer looking at them. But we do that. We make up narratives in our heads. We make up phenomenal stories that we tell ourselves. Look at those innocent people. They didn't do anything to deserve what? To deserve that tsunami, to deserve being in the path of that earthquake, to deserve. We make up stories in our heads. Deserve has nothing to do with an earthquake. Earthquakes happen. That's the law of nature. It is about balancing nature. According to the logic of the story of deserve, what it means then is that some part of us believes that, an earthquake's coming, let us empty the prisons and take all the good people and put them in some place of protection, because according to the death quota, 200,000 people are scheduled to die. Let's find all the bad people. But that's what it means. If you buy into this notion, all those poor innocent people, you are completely missing the truth. Here's the operative word, the truth. That death has nothing to do with good, bad, innocent guilt. Zero. Accident, and in fact, that's not even a tragedy. Nature balances itself. Storms are normal. They're part of nature. And if you're caught in the way of a storm, if places are flooded, they happen. And species die and they are replaced. How heartless? No. I am making a really huge point that needs to be made. And that's that we have removed ourselves from the truth that we are a species of nature that is subject to the laws instead of exceptions to it. We think we're an exception. And so when something happens, we say, we're innocent, we didn't deserve that law. What law? And we believe that there's an off-planet God that operates by our court system. And these types of stories create the foundation for a theology in people that is fundamentally erroneous from the core upward. So as a medical intuitive, when somebody would say, give me the one reason why I'm sick, and I'm thinking, one? One? This is why doing a reading now is out of the question. It's out of the question. The fundamental wiring in a human being is rotten to the core. The entire wiring is rotten. It's not about a belief anymore. It's that the whole mythic wiring is simply rotten. It's got nothing to do with it's not even personal. It's impersonal. The whole wiring has got to go. And whether or not you realize it, you are renovating your wiring. And it's an extraordinary journey to do that. Part of it is actually, I don't believe we have any choice. It's not a choice. Everybody is on this evolutionary path. Absolutely everybody. We have entered an age of energy. We've entered it. That's all there's to it. You spend most of your time in the invisible world now, whether or not you get that. You are connected to the internet, you Google, all your communications. There's very little of you now that's in the physical world except what has to be there. Even to get you to exercise requires now that you dress yourself up in clothing so that you can, I've got to force myself into the ground. You have to find a gymnasium and pay for it to get yourself to move your body, because you can't trust that you will push yourself into the world and just walk. We don't call it walking anymore, we call it exercise. And we have to get dressed up and hang water bottles on us because we no longer can even make it a block without putting something in our mouth. A Starbucks with low-fat milk, soy, and a little almond milk or coconut water, something, but it can't be just coffee anymore. My God in heaven. What if we become? Okay? Yay. Okay? Yay. This is how, and you wonder, and why am I falling apart here? What do you think? What do I think? Where do we start? Okay. But you can't even imagine how much of you is not even on the ground anymore. To say this differently, how much of you is in kairos or timelessness? The internet is a dimension of no time and no space, no speed. You are in what's called the kairos world. the world of the here and now. That's the mystic's domain. Your body is in physical time. The rest of you, the world of ideas, the world of communication. So I'm going to translate this in a little bit of a different way because it gets a little bit more, it gets vastly more intriguing. I don't think we could stop the search for the significant and the holy if we tried. I don't believe we could do that. I don't believe we could stop. I feel like once you put your focus on the kind of question that says, for what reason, what's really going on here, what is my inner world about? Once that starts, it reshapes the whole of who you are. And while you don't get that the rest of your world has begun to change, everything has. Now, we have yet to create this world and figure out this world we're going to. But deep in ourselves, we know everything's different. We know it. We just haven't figured out how to chart our way. We know deep in our intuitive gut that however we have understood God is not the way we want to understand God. That there's the God we talked about and knew, and then there's the experiential nature of the divine. The mystical, the awakening of the mystic inside. This is what I believe is the journey that you are on, that we are on. The shift from the physical to the energetic, the mystical, the kairos domain, even in your spirit, to your spiritual intelligence, to your cosmic spirit. I believe that even our survival is dependent on this, believe it or not. But that aside, let me just put it in terms of science. Let me just put it in terms of basic energy reality. We are now, even in science, we know that, look at your internet, and now think of it as your internet. That they are one and the same thing. That your internet operates exactly like your internet. And you're connected to everybody, just like you are on the internet. So picture that everybody on your internet is actually a soul companion. And that the emails you send are actually prayers or thoughts or whatever, that you really are connected in that instant. And now grapple with this because it's great, big, huge. It's so huge, it's unimaginable. And yet it's actually happening. We're past the imagination point. And that's that years ago, not so long ago, we lived with the illusion that we thought was true, but then we found out there was no truth to it at all. But we lived with the illusion that whatever country we were in kept us safe from every other country. That whatever happened in Tasmania or whatever happened in Bolivia had nothing to do with what happened in Russia. We lived in this world. Let me put it now, that's the macro. Let me put it in the micro. That would be just like saying I lived with the belief that what happened in my kidney didn't even affect my heart, and didn't affect my spleen, and didn't affect my bones. There's no difference. What's in my little world is in my big world. Are you following me here? And then, all of a sudden, that illusion was thrown out, and it was replaced by this concept, a higher truth of holism, where, oh my, what is in one is in the whole. Whatever I do to one organ in my body, I'm doing to all the organs in my body. Agreed? So whatever is done to one nation has to be done to the whole. So now, isn't it the truth that an event goes on over here in one nation, something horrible in Syria or Jordan, and the next thing you know, the price of oil, you wake up and the price of oil is different. How does that have to do with this? Who knows? But it affected your pocketbook immediately. This affects that, affects this in a microsecond, a microsecond. This isn't about oil and that. This is about, oh my, every single thing seems to affect the whole, every single thing, which means everything you do affects the whole. Everything. Everything. That you do not see this doesn't change the truth. Does not change the truth. What it does mean is that every single thing that is happening, everything around, everything, affects each of us every second. Change is universal. It is immediate. We used to believe that what happens someplace takes years to affect us. Throw that out. Now you know whatever happens anywhere affects us instantly. We're seeing it even in the banking. We're seeing it in the military. We're seeing it with viruses. Find someone in Africa that's got the Ebola, they want to shut down all of a sudden your security is threatened no matter where you are. Everything is affected, which means every one of your thoughts, everything in your body that you regulate through your mind, through your thoughts, through your spirit, affects the whole of your body, affects the whole in this room, and it means, and here's a thought I'm going to ask you to take with you to bed. Which one of your feelings, your thoughts, your attitudes, which one would you say is insignificant? But you'd say, well, this one doesn't matter. This one doesn't affect anything. So this one doesn't matter. Which one of your feelings, which one would you say does not qualify for the word profound? If you know that every one of your thoughts affects the whole, and here's something to really get your knickers in a twist about. If every one of my thoughts about you affects you, then I have to really think that every one of your thoughts about me affects me. I have to turn it around. So if you think that you have negative thoughts about someone or negative polling anything, you have to realize that that's an invitation to someone. You may as well go up to that person and say, would you do me a favor and hate my guts? Because that's what I'm doing to you, and then it could be mutual. Because I'm transmitting the worst visions of you every day across the wires. These are dark prayers. And if you believe you can send grace to someone, you can do this. We'll get to this over the weekend. which means, oh my, everything that I do, everything is profound. Now, all right, let's leave all that and come back here. The reason I so believe that I'm going to kind of put this into a tone of spiritual direction this weekend, plus everything else, is because what I believe people are looking for, I really do, is a way of working with the sacred, working with holiness, working with that is no longer in the traditional form, and yet we want to access a mystical life. We want a mystical sacredness without the superstition, without all the la 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 la, and yet it gives us the rich, deep guidance that allows us to go very deeply within ourselves, but bypassing all the superstitious ritual nonsense that we don't need anymore. Yet we have prayer, we have a sense that there is something greater than ourselves, and I think that is what people are seeking. And within that are the questions of, but is it possible? What is healing? What is you get past and through the superstitions, and you become to understand that yes, healing is absolutely part of the nature of the human spirit, but it's not a magical thing. It is part of the laws governing the nature of the spirit. There are laws that govern the human spirit. And it's just like the Tao. As we put ourselves back into our nature and follow our nature, healing is part of returning to our nature. It is in our nature to be able to heal. It is not an exception. We can't treat what is native to us, natural to our spirit, as being an exception, because it's not. But if you understand your nature, like if you put yourself in any kind of extreme, you will swing the other way in order to balance. You will swing the other way in order to balance. You can expect that, because that's how nature does everything, even in us. If you know this and you think, I have to live in balance, the object is to live with balance, because that's what human nature needs, is balance. It's not my nature, it is human nature. Now, how do I find my path of balance given who I am? What do I need? What will keep me in balance? And that becomes part of your spiritual path. Does this make sense to you? What do I need to maintain my spirit's balance? And that's where your own inner search comes in. So I'm going to hit a pause button here and ask you if there are any questions so far, because I have a few for you. Oh, there's a mic behind if you want to take the mic, because this is going to be recorded. Anybody have a question? Anything? I gotta get my glasses. I can't see anything.
My name is Mark. Just wondering, I agree with what you're saying, and I look out at, I'd say it's called the energy of the world, whatever. And I can grasp that things are what they are, it is what it is, that it should be. I get to the point where, and you were saying about, if everything is as it should be, and what's my involvement then? What is my purpose? And I think you hit on it, maybe the inner spirit thing, but my question is what is my purpose purpose here then if everything outside of me is behaving as it should?
No, 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 no. Everything is not behaving as it should. No, no, wait a minute. There's a difference in what I said nature is as it should be.
But that's...
No, no, no.
Oh, there's a difference.
No. We are a species of nature. So we are subject to the law of gravity, of cause and effect, we are predators, we are hunters, there are the laws that absolutely govern us, that govern nature. But there are also qualities that are unique to us that, quote, define us as human. And perhaps that is our questing for this idea that we each have a unique purpose for being born, which is something we cling to like rafts on a rough ocean.
Well, what gets my way is the judgment. If I judge everything, let's say. If I'm judging what's going on in the world and everything that's happening, it's coming through my filter. So that's not a pure moment. So
no, let me. I'm obviously not saying this. I think I'm going on two paths here. So let me maybe say this again. Maybe through this door. One way that I would express the purpose of human creation is, in fact, I just had this on my class, is that it's to participate, as to discover, to explore, to experience co-creation with the power of the human spirit. That every thought you have sends energy into motion. That every choice you make sets wheels of creation into motion. That this is when someone says, what is the purpose of my life? Take the my out and now ask the question again. What is the purpose of life?
Well, I could say that life is the divine will.
Right.
And then when I do something, basically that's divine will, right? I mean,
no.
No?
It's not that simple. Because if it were just like robot stuff, do this, do that, do this, do that. It's not that simple, because we would not have conflict if it was that simple. And more to the point, we would not have conscience. And the battle within us between what is good and what is evil, what is right and what is wrong. We would not have dilemmas over, I could choose to tell you the truth, or I could lie. And there would be very different consequences to both. And I set one set of consequences in motion, or I set another. And each of those paths have very different futures for me depending on which one I select. And that will become part of when someone says, what's your purpose? My purpose is to learn the cause and effect. One of my purposes, there's no such thing as a purpose. There's no such thing. Part of what gets woven into my learning is that the choice to distort truth sets in motion a dynamic of cause and effect that does not quit. Does not quit. There's only one truth here. Did you drop this or did you drop this, yes or no? Yes. Truth ends there. Truth has one answer, one. A lie goes on forever. Never stops. The part of what we learn and part of our purpose is to learn these tools. Do I tell the truth or do I lie? And that begins to form life and how we then experience it. It determines the quality of relationship, the quality of how you see life, the quality of how you engage, the quality of how you receive guidance. You bow your head and you say, help me out, let me see my higher purpose. And what happens when you say a prayer like that is your whole system shuts down because it says higher purpose. Higher purpose, what are you going to do with a higher purpose? Let's get you out of the way you're so baffled here. We have to get you clear so that you trust yourself. We'll start with your purpose being able to trust yourself again. You don't trust yourself. You don't even trust yourself. What's it like to live your life when you know you don't even trust yourself? How can you trust a fellow human being? Right. How can we give you... Do you realize how many human beings do not even trust themselves? How can they be given a larger task to caretake others, to have others trust them, when they do not even trust themselves?
So my true responsibility, is, from what I've gathered, is to go within. That would be the higher purpose.
It would be the...
Is to connect with that inner...
Is to scaffold yourself. And really it begins with power. To say, wait a minute, my first task is to take charge of what is truth and what is not. To be able to command myself in front of an illusion, to say, I'm not giving my power away, because I won't give my power away to something that's not true. I won't, if someone says to me, oh, the sky is falling, I realize that's not true. I'm not going to, suddenly become hysterical and attach myself to that rumor. I'm not going to. You said that you judge everything. Judgment should evolve to discernment, where you become very discerning and decide, there's no truth to that. This is worth looking at. Where you hold every one of your emotions, every one of yourself really in check, so that you look at everything, but nothing has an emotional reaction. It doesn't command you.
Yeah, if you're not judging, then everything just is what it is. But then that's where I'm like, well, then why do I care about anything?
No. See, I'm asking you about discernment. I am extremely discerning. I can be ruthlessly judgmental, which is why I decided to become discerning.
That's why I'm here.
Pardon?
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm to that point where it's like, I don't want to judge anymore. I mean, I want to, but then I'm like, well, if I don't judge and everything just is what it is,
no.
Why do I care?
Then you enter into the world of, I just want to understand. I want to, and I want to learn. I want to observe. Observing without judging is clarity. What's the archetypal pattern? Maybe there's a higher observational deck. When you get to the point when someone judges, it's because you look and say, you must have some purpose for me, or you have no purpose at all. You must wear your clothes the way I like it, or everything you wear is just foolish and that kind of thing. And that's what judgment is about. When you realize, I'm judging because I think everything should mean something to me. That my standards are like the gold standards by which, and that's when you say, excuse me, I'll be right back, and you put your head in the toilet for 7 minutes. And you come back and say, I think I'll release my standards. Who am I? And that's your first day of walking humbly on the earth. That's your first day and your first true soul lesson. I bow my head and I walk humbly on this earth. I am no one. I will not judge. And it becomes your first true soul lesson. And that's your first day of truly walking with your soul. The day you say, that's it, I give it up. I am walking humbly on, I look at everybody now through equal eyes, and I see God in them. That's enough. You could do that, I'll take your workshop. Anyone else? Because I have a question. I have homework for you. Okay, and then I'm going to send us all to bed. Okay. I would like you to spend some time. I know it's late and you're traveled. You probably want to go unpack or just unwind. But I would like you to spend some time. You know, there are 10 significant questions that we're going to go through this weekend. And you probably thought I'd give them to you all at once, but no. I'm going to dot them through. So the first one is tonight. And it's, what has meaning for me? What has meaning for me? What has meaning for me? Followed by what does not? What has meaning for me in life? What has meaning? And you're not allowed to say my family. That's nonsense, of course. This is about you and yourself. This is about you. It's about you and yourself. Hardcore you and yourself. What do you really get as meaningful? Because what happens is meaning changes with you and for you, and it changes you. If you're not aware of this wheel grinding inside of you, you won't feel it grinding. You won't realize I'm in a crisis of meaning and purpose. You're not searching for it, you're in a crisis of it. There's a difference. There's a big difference. When you're asking, what's the purpose of my life? You already know that. You already have that. You've already been engaged in that. You're having, the wheels are grinding yet again. They're grinding. And they're shifting. There's a redefining of what meaning and purpose is. You just haven't been directed to ask the question again. Again. This is what spiritual let me direct you. Go in to yourself. And say, and I would like to borrow something from my spiritual direction class. I don't think my students would mind. Would you mind if I share the well and the pebbles? How we begin our class, how we end our class, what we use throughout the class now, is a beautiful, beautiful image of that you have a well inside of you. And I think how I began the class, and it is, if this image takes inside of you, you'll carry it for the rest of your life. What I was profoundly taken by, I read the Old Testament a lot. I love, love, love sacred literature. And I love the Old Testament. And part of the reason I've come to love it even more is because I think a lot of those stories actually happened. Now, I wouldn't have said this years ago, but I'm going to say it now. I think a lot of those stories actually happened exactly the way they're told. And I say that because those stories took place before doubt was created the way we have doubt. Before fear was created the way we had fear. You have to go back and be that time and that place. We have to undo all the harm that reason and fear has done to us. You have to stand on the earth where there was just earth and sky and nothing in between but sand and the armies of the Canaanites and the Israelites and the Egyptians. What was in between? Nothing. They didn't sit there and say, do you think there's anything out there? They knew. When Abraham was visited by 2 angels, who said, we've come to talk to you. And he said, get my guests food, show them to my tent. That really happened, I think. I think it really happened. He didn't say, oh, Sarah, I think I'm losing my mind, get me a cold towel. No. And I'll tell you another reason why. Because once Jesus came, and that next wave of consciousness came, because Jesus was all about the inner, and the Old Testament's about the outer, the laws. Jesus was about inner laws. The Old Testament is about outer laws, the 10 Commandments, the how do you behave out here. Jesus is about how do you behave in here, like Buddha. Jesus didn't see any of them. He saw Elijah, he had those outer visions, but there was a very different form of apparition. Yahweh spoke directly to Moses. Yahweh did not speak directly to Jesus. He had to go out to the desert to go into quiet prayer. He had to go in the inside. He had to go to his inside. He didn't have those kinds of visitations. They were so common in the Old Testament. And then as you go through those centuries and Christianity evolves, all those kinds of ways of the apparitions in the physical form that, Jesus did see the prophets and he did have the apparitions, but after that, it stopped. After his ascension, that the kind of the fading away of that began and as you get to like the last really great, outrageous mystics, Ignatius Loyola, John of the Cross, Teresa of Avila, all of whom lived at the same time, all of whom were Spanish. And they all lived in Spain. And here's Teresa writing about, I saw an angel today, but she didn't tell me what realm it was from. But it was it was like a vague apparition. It wasn't materialization. These angels in the Old Testament materialized. They weren't, but Jesus, the angels that came, they were light angels. Like if you see what they talked, when they talked about the angels in the New Testament, they were apparitions of light. They were already fading into a different dimension. But in the Old Testament, they're as real and hardy as we are. It's too fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating. So when I look back and the way Yahweh called his prophets, the way he called Abram, or the way he called Moses, the way he called them, he would say, "Fear not, for I am the Lord thy God, and I am calling you." They probably heard exactly that. And this is how the ancients were called, and they always said, "I am listening, Lord. Your servant is listening. I am listening, Lord. I am listening. I am calling you. Fear not. Have no fear of me, but I am calling you." What a way to go to prayer in yourself. So the image is that you have a well inside of you. And you've been called to that well. You've been called. You've been called, and that you are responding to a call that says, "Fear not, I am the Lord." However you image that for yourself. And I am calling you. And your response is, "I am listening, Lord. Your servant is listening." And your whole task is not to show up with a grocery list full of, can I have, would you do this? No. That is not the role anymore. It's how a child prays. It's how a frightened little child prays. No, no, no. No more now. Your task, is to stand by your well and say, you've called me. That's why you're at a workshop like this. That's why you are in despair. That's why you could be upside down in your heart and your body and your mind, wondering where to go. That's what a calling feels like. What do you think a calling is like? The phone rings? No. A calling has always been disruption of the self. An eruption, a disruption. You've called me. I'm listening. I'm here. I'm here now. And then image that you have a very small pebble. And you get very, very quiet, very quiet. No phone on, nothing. You're by yourself, you're very quiet. Maybe you go out and look at this fantastic sky. And you drop that pebble. And you wait, and you wait, and you listen for it to make the tiniest sound. As it hits the water, that water is in you. And you say, I'm listening. I'm listening. That's all. I'm listening. And you may just feel like it's enough, you and me, finally. I just want to be here. I've made it. I'm listening. That's all. So close your eyes. Get very still. Get very still. Get very, very still. And imagine that you, imagine that you hear a voice and it says, fear not, for I am the Lord, and I am calling you. And you walk toward the well in yourself, and you say, I am listening, Lord. Your servant is listening. And you drop a pebble in this quiet well. You drop it, and it falls. And it's very, very silent. You listen very carefully, very carefully. Very, very carefully. And it makes a small sound at the bottom. Ask anything. And God said to me, my mind and my heart thought deeply for a second, and then replied with one word, when? God's arms then opened up, and I entered myself. I entered myself when I entered the sweet grace of God. And having learned compassion, I allowed my soul to stay. Stay at your well, inside of yourself. With grace, all things are possible. Okay, everybody. Come on back. It was a lovely, lovely first evening.